The horse bolts into the darkness. A shout cuts through the wind. A body hits the dry ground with no one close enough to help. Dust fills the eyes, the lungs, the mouth. The smell of sweat, leather, and blood hangs heavy in the air. Somewhere nearby, cattle panic and won't settle. Silence never fully arrives. Something is always about to go wrong. Someone might not wake up tomorrow.
What pushed a man to accept a life like this, day after day, with no promise of what came next?
Sounds like an old ranch cowboy from Texas. Rough voice shaped by years of dust, whiskey, and long nights under the stars. What was happening was not a romantic adventure, and it wasn't a legend being born. It was the real life of cowboys in the American West during the 1800s, a way of living shaped by expansion, cattle economics, and the fast-moving edge of a growing civilization pushing into vast, uncontrolled land. This period marked a deep rupture in how work, land, and survival were organized. It wasn't just an occupation. It was a collision between progress and human limits, and its scars did not fade quietly. The West is often imagined as a place that was always violent, unstable, and doomed from the start. But before the great cattle drives exploded across the plains, there was balance. Ranches operated with rhythm. Small towns grew slowly. Regional trade followed predictable patterns. Demand for beef was rising. Railroads were approaching. Prosperity was taking shape. And it was precisely this growth that demanded more men, longer distances, greater risks. The stronger the system became, the more fragile its foundations were. Sounds like an old ranch cowboy from Texas. Rough voice shaped by years of dust, whiskey, and long nights under the stars. Western society at the time revolved around land and animals. Large ranches stretched across open territory. Cattle had to be driven hundreds of miles to railheads and markets. Towns formed along these routes. Saloons, supply stores, stables, all connected by dust roads and the promise of fast money. People were constantly on the move. Ideas, rumors, and conflicts traveled with them.
The same network that fueled opportunity also spread exhaustion, violence, and instability.
The origin of cowboy life did not begin with gunfights or lawlessness. It began quietly, almost invisibly. Population growth in the East, rapid urbanization, and the need to feed millions created pressure far away from the open range. Wide land, unpredictable weather, and hard-to-control animals became part of an improvised solution.
The cowboy emerged as a practical response to an economic machine no one fully understood. The point of contact with the civilized world happened along trails and frontier towns, places where cattle finally arrived, where money changed hands, where brutal labor met urban demand. There, the cowboy stopped being just another figure in the landscape and became a visible part of a much larger system. These places were tension points. Law tried to exist there. Conflicts erupted there. Lives crossed briefly before scattering again. This way of life spread quickly. As new routes opened, more men were hired. Young men with no land, former soldiers, immigrants, men running from past lives. From region to region, the pattern repeated. Long days, little rest, low pay, constant danger. Towns rose and fell. Some survived. Others became silent ruins. Where movement once filled the air, only open doors and empty streets remained. Under constant pressure, human reactions were confused and often damaging. Many believed hardship built character, that suffering was proof of worth. Superstition guided decisions. Instinct mattered more than rules. Science offered little help. Medical care was minimal. A fall, a fever, or a spooked horse could end everything. Attempts to enforce order often failed.
Distance and isolation turned small problems into disasters.
Over time, social and moral collapse became visible. Laws existed, but rarely arrived in time. Human bonds broke easily. Work partners vanished without explanation. Families were left behind. Fear of strangers grew. A newcomer could be a threat. A small conflict could turn deadly. Accounts from the period describe men buried quickly, unnamed, while work continued as if nothing had happened. Desperation also fueled radical behavior. Groups seen as different were blamed for problems no one could solve. Violence found justification. Force replaced discussion. In many places, survival mattered more than justice. The West did not invent these instincts, but it exposed them without disguise. The effects of this life were not limited to frontier towns. In the countryside, the impact was deep. Land wore down. Animals died along the trails. Paths carved by hoods and wagons reshaped entire landscapes. Regions once quiet became corridors of constant movement. When the flow slowed, nature slowly reclaimed space, leaving behind scars of human effort that had burned too fast. Eventually, this extreme way of life began to fade, not as a victory, but as exhaustion. Railroads expanded, routes shortened, fences replaced open range. The free roaming cowboy became a hired hand or disappeared altogether. Physical and emotional strain took its toll. Silence returned to many areas, not as peace, but as the end of a cycle.
The world that followed was different. The economy reorganized. Myth replaced memory. The cowboy became a symbol, while the real men aged earlier were forgotten. Culture, ideas of freedom, and even the meaning of work in the West were shaped by this harsh experience. A new world rose from worn bodies and difficult choices.
Looking back at this history means looking at ourselves. We still romanticize sacrifice. We still confuse endurance with virtue. We still push limits without fully counting the human cost. Cowboy life in the American West during the 1800s is not just distant history. It is a reminder of how progress is built and who pays for it. The past is not celebration, it is memory. And the next era is already watching us.